Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in Hollywood, California. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our virtual friends, gathering around the virtual water cooler with us, talking about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And I am a lucky duck, because I, today, have the one, the only, the great Greg Alba from Real Rejects joining us today. Greg, thanks for being here.
Duck, John. I'm so happy to be here. This is such a cool studio, and you guys have a freight elevator.
And we do have a freight elevator.
I've never been in one of those before. Yeah.
Not a lot of people know this, but there's a little bit of Cable going on here, because Cable was Scott's son from the future, came back. Apparently, Greg is my son from the future, because I am Italian, Anne is Filipino, and then we were talking to Greg the other day in a movie theater, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Italian Filipino," and Anne and I are like, "You're our son from the future."
I'm John Campea's son.
He's come back.
I'm so excited to be here, Dad.
All right, listen, we got a whole bunch of stuff we got to talk about here today, and a lot of the questions you guys have sent in, but we're going to get started off the top with this. Last night, I went to go see that little new Peter Jackson-produced film's Mortal Engines. Now, you guys have been, talking about this, and I actually had some pretty high expectations early on. Peter Jackson producing it. It's a beloved novel series. I thought the trailers were actually pretty good, and I'm going to tell you this. So I go in to see this yesterday, Greg. Okay. And the first thing that jumps out to me is the world they created. Okay. Is awe-inspiring. Like, it was very it was very Middle Earth-ish in the way that they created this post-apocalyptic world with these giant cities that roll on wheels and all this kind of stuff, and it's very, very immersive, and it looks beautiful.
How's the story, though? How's all that?
If we could just stop the conversation at how beautiful it looked, then we'd be talking about a pretty damn good movie. The story sucked.
Oh, was it? Okay, I imagine so.
Maybe I shouldn't say that, because I haven't read the book. And maybe in the book, maybe in the novel, it's great. Maybe the story as it's presented in the novel is great. But watching this thing on this, like the way they put it together and executed it, and it's over 2 hours long, but it felt totally disjointed. Okay. It felt like it felt like a very sporadic kind of movie. It's like, oh, now this girl's here. Why? Never mind. This girl's here.
Because plot.
Because reasons.
Yeah, okay.
And it just went on. And then, no big shocker here. Hugo Weaving, who's the villain of the film, and the young girl in the scarf there, they face off at the end. And there's this big reveal. I'm not even going to say what it was, but there's a big reveal that happens at the end that has no bearing on anything else in the movie. It's not hinted. It's just dropped on you. And I remember I actually turned to Anne last night, who was with me. I'm like, did they really just do that? It was. We walked out of the theater, and Anne doesn't say this often because Anne loves going to the movies. But she walked out of the theater. She says this: "I hate leaving a theater mad because you feel like a movie just wasted your time." And that's what I kind of felt about Mortal Engines. Not only was it a bit of a waste of time, but it was wasted potential, because when you see that world and the visuals and the popularity that the book series have, and you can see it, that underneath, it reminded me of the first Underworld film, where you're watching it, it's like it wasn't executed great, but when you're watching it, you can see the potential in it, right? Yeah.
It's like every Purge movie for me.
Yes. You can see the potential there, and it just didn't work out. And I just got to say, guys,
but is it so bad it's good, or is it boring? Because the only kind of film experience I hate is boredom. If it's not boring, I can sit through it.
Here's the thing: there is visually, and there's some great set pieces. Okay. I coined a phrase with some of the latter Transformers movie that I just called, when you just got visual noise. And I said this: when you have action without narrative purpose, it's just visual noise. Yes. And there is some great...
That's a tattoo right there.
there's some great visuals in the movie and some great action set pieces, but you realize, but I don't care, because they haven't made me care story-wise about this. And so, And
so it sounds boring.
I think you might be bored.
Boring. Okay.
I would suggest you're not missing anything by not going to see this movie, guys.
I have A-list, and I wasn't even planning on using it for that, to be honest.
All right, guys, listen, let's get on now to our main topics today. How do we select our main topics? Well, it's simple. You guys select our main topics by emailing me your topics and questions anytime, 24/7. to John at thejohncampeashow.com. That's John at thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you guys put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, please keep those emails to 90 words or less, because even if I like your email, but it's longer than that, I won't be able to fit it on the screen. All right, let's get on to our first email today. And our first email today comes to us from Tabitha Fleur, who writes, "Hi, John. I know you're a big Pixar fan, absolutely. So I wanted to know what you thought about the announcement that the next Pixar film after Toy Story 4 was going to be Onward, about two elf brothers. What caught my attention was Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are in it. Do you think it has potential?" All right, thanks a lot for the email, Tabitha. And for those of you who don't know anything about it, here's kind of the synopsis they gave for Onward. This is the synopsis they gave for Onward here. It's Onward follows two teenage elf brothers who embark on an extraordinary quest to discover if there is still magic left in the world. It hits theaters on March 6th, 2020. And Greg, I heard them, the guys who's going to be directed, I believe it's being directed and produced by the same director and producer
Monsters University.
Of Monsters University, yes. And they were talking a little bit about how, I think one of them said they had a brother and their dad passed away when they were very young.
Yeah.
And it created, and that kind of gave a little bit of an emotional hook to me. Let me ask you this. You here, first of all, do you even like Pixar films that much? But then secondly,
I hate Pixar. I'm putting that on record right now.
Pixar.
Worst animation company. Yeah.
What did you think when you heard about this announcement? You hear names like Chris Pratt, Tom Holland, and others being attached. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, the biggest excitement factor for me actually was because I'm not a big Monsters University fan.
Right.
But I like when Pixar gets really personal. Like Coco was one of my favorite Pixar movies.
Good.
And the quote that you're talking about, he said the film was inspired by my own relationship with my brother. And I have a brother, and we had a dad who passed away in 2013.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And because of that, it actually brought us really much closer together. Now we both have YouTube channels. So because of that, like hearing just that description got me really intrigued, because I like the tearjerker, heartfelt Pixar movies.
Right.
Personally, it's like, I know like Monsters University is a lot more fun and goofy. And when you hear Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, you kind of imagine that, which I'm sure will have all that humor. But I'm more excited for the more personal side of it. And I think Chris Pratt and Tom Holland together, that just fits. That just works. Like, even when you see like behind the scenes of Infinity War and you see them hanging out, you're like, they look like they'd be best friends in real life. Except they're saying they're playing brothers, and I know they're elves, but there's such a wide age difference between the two.
True.
Like,
yeah.
there's like 20 something years between the guys, but they're saying they're both teenage brothers. So I'm like, are they playing around the same age? But I don't know. I guess that doesn't really matter at this point.
You made a really good observation. Like Pixar, they make very funny stuff.
True.
And great, the adventure stuff of the Pixar films. They do a great job, but you're right. The thing that sets them apart from like a DreamWorks has put out some amazing stuff too, don't get me wrong. But they're able to go to that emotional level that a lot of movies don't.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at
I cried 3 times in Coco.
Well, yeah, not only that, like I was teary at the end too, but also like at the first 10 minutes of Up.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, like that, I remember seeing Up for the first time and watching that scene, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I've never had an animated film do what this movie is doing to me emotionally now.
Yes.
And if they can bring something like that to the table, then I'm all for it. Toy Story 4 is coming out now. And it's kind of interesting because we are now truly like, look, Incredibles 2 came out after John Lasseter left Pixar, but it was mostly made with John Lasseter when he was still there. Toy Story 4 is going to give us our first real look at Pixar, and then going into Onward of a post-John Lasseter Pixar. Are you expecting to see much of a difference, or do you think because they still have so much of the same team still there that we're not going to notice much?
I think there's going to be there's so much more than John Lasseter. It's easy to have a face for Pixar like John Lasseter, but there's always so many more people involved in a production company like this, especially for Pixar. And I think too that with one thing we were talking about, like DreamWorks and Pixar and everything. One thing I love that Pixar does best with their casting is they don't just pick famous people.
Right.
You know, like Sherlock Gnomes came out this year, and that's like famous voices the movie, you know, but that's all there really is to it. And I think Pixar does a great job at knowing exactly who to pick and why to pick them, as opposed to, hey, they're famous, let's do them. So I think they're going to be on the right track. I doubt that just because John Lasseter's not there anymore, that it's going to go downhill. I don't believe that for a second, actually.
All
Do
right.
you? Is that your personal belief?
You know, I'm curious to find out. I'm because it's not. It just be interesting to see when you have somebody else now at the lead, if the DNA changes much. But I'm with you. I think you have so many of that team that are still there, and
There's like thousands of people.
Yeah, including a lot of the upper senior leadership are still consistent. I think we're probably going to see not a lot of change there. All right, let's move on to the second email. And the second email today comes to us from Naya M, who writes, "It looks like Christmas is coming early for you, Mr. Campea. Your prayers have been answered. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is officially coming back to Supernatural, at least for one episode, the 300th in the season. On a scale of 10 to 10, just how excited are you about this? Keep bringing the filthy." Look, I have always said, it doesn't matter if Jeffrey Dean Morgan is Negan. It does not matter if he's the comedian. It does not matter what else you do with Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He will always be John Winchester to me, the father of Sammy and Dean in Supernatural. I have been watching, you and I were just talking about Supernatural.
It's the only news story we talked about before filming.
Yeah, we didn't talk about any
of the other ones.
But it's like, I've been watching this show now for 10 years. I jumped on board somewhere around season 3, season 4.
Did you start from the beginning, though? Did you go back?
No, I didn't. Well, later I did, but I started right on season 4.
Okay.
And I was just watching it for that because nothing else was on. I'm like, this was actually pretty good. And then I watched a few more, and then I'm like, okay, I'm hooked on this show now. I'll go back and watch the originals, but I saw it out of order to start, right? But Jeffrey Dean Morgan as their dad, he will always be that to me. And they actually did some funny stuff with him last year because when he went on Walking Dead as Negan, you know, Sam and Dean, they hunt monsters. So they started an episode of one Supernatural last year where Sam and Dean go into their trunk where they keep all their weapons and they pull out Lucille. They pull out the baseball bat with the barbed wire and they go, "Man, now I see why Dad always loved this thing."
Oh, they did that? I didn't know that.
It's just a funny little thing. And then Jeffrey Dean Morgan set out a tweet that went viral. He set out a tweet that said, "Boys, I told you never to touch my stuff." And which was great to see him come back for this 300. First of all, what TV shows these days last 14 years? It's just an incredible thing right there. But for them to bring him back is great too. What do you think about Jeffrey Dean Morgan overall and like this whole notion of a 14th year, 300 episodes, bringing a guy like that back?
Well, you see, I only started Supernatural this year, and I start from season 1.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, because
I'm so envious.
We have a Patreon, and everyone's like, you got to start covering Supernatural. So we were doing like our reactions there. I'm only on episode 15, where Jeffrey Dean Morgan has finally started making appearances.
Right.
But I already see the differences because you talked about like him as Negan, and I did see Rick's last episode of The Walking Dead, and I'm seeing like, it seems like they're going down weird directions with Negan. I'm not even sure if he's still going to be on the show. And then, you know, you think of the comedian. Those are his two biggest roles outside of, what's the dad's name? John Winchester?
John Winchester,
John Winchester, yeah. But seeing John Winchester on Supernatural is so much more of a subtle Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
And it's different. And I like seeing that because I'm so used to, you know, like the Rick, you know, like the really big personality. And even as the comedian, he's a very big personality. But in Supernatural, anytime he's on screen, I'm like, wow, the really subtle, serious Jeffrey Dean Morgan is awesome to watch. Even in that last episode, did you see Rick's last episode?
I did not see Rick's last episode. I haven't seen any Walking Dead this season yet.
Okay, well, I won't spoil what they do with it, but even Negan's moment there was more subtle in that episode, and I actually really like the subtle Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I like the chewing up the scenery version. I don't know if he evolves in Supernatural to be a more over-the-top kind of character, the way that we love Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but to me, I'm like, I gotta start binging this show even faster now.
He was certainly more over the top. Did you see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Rampage? That was out of this. That was the over the top Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
That's the Jeffrey Dean Morgan I know now. But he's Negan everywhere he goes. Yeah.
There's another movie he did that nobody ever talks about, and I think it is my favorite movie he's ever done. And it was a little film he did with Idris Elba and Chris Evans called I think it was called The Losers. Was that the name of it? Yeah, I think it was called
Wake Up, Ray.
Where they play this this military team and they do whatever. And I remember talking to Chris Evans about it too. I said, by the way, I think The Losers is one of the most underrated films ever. He goes, and Chris Evans just about jumped out of his skin because I think that's like his favorite movie he's ever shot. And he goes, yes, no one ever talks about The Losers. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and he's the lead in that with Idris Elba and Chris Evans. If you have have not had a chance to check out The Losers, I highly recommend it. It's fun, it's funny, it's exciting, it's a little edgy too, and make sure you watch the post-credit scene on it as well because it's really fun. All right, Let's move on now to the third email today. And the third email today comes to us from Gabriel Rodriguez, who writes, "Greetings, John. I follow you on Twitter and saw your tweet about Apollo Creed joining The Mandalorian, so I looked it up. Not only is Carl Weathers joining the Star Wars cast, but Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad, he plays Gustav in that, and the great Werner Herzog, oh my God, as well. We already know all the amazing talent they have directing the show. So my question is, with all the talent they're adding to this, is Mandalorian shaping up not just to be a great Star Wars show, but a great show in general? Thank you." Greg, let me ask you this. First of all,
Yes,
they came
John.
out, they announced it with John Favreau as the showrunner, which is great. Then they announced this incredible list of directors.
Yes.
Then we find out Pedro Pascal is starring in it.
That's
now we're
awesome.
hearing like this follow-up cast. Is this show, like he was just asking, is this show shaping up to be an interesting looking Star Wars show? Or does this look like it has the potential to actually be like just a legit great show?
Like a legit great show. I think it has the potential to be a legit great show. It's like all we've really seen is an image of it. We don't really know what it is. I think the only guarantee that we definitely have right now, that even if the material itself might not be great, let's just say worst case, it's not great, it'll definitely be elevated by the talent they have behind the camera and in front of the camera. And that always goes a long way, is the kind of talent you have, because a lot of times you get bad shows, but you can have a great performance in there or great actors. There you go. But they make it worth it. And I think when you get this caliber of talent, like Carl Weathers, and I always get his name wrong. I know how to spell it. Giancarlo Esposito and Nick Nolte. They got a lot of
Nick Nolte.
They have a lot of older actors in here. Like all these people are like above 60 years old. So I'm wondering what the plot of it is going to be, because Pedro Pascal is like 39, I think. But then you got a lot of these more veteran actors in there. Weirdly, Carl Weathers is the one I'm most excited for.
Yes.
Because he does so much TV now. He's never really in the spotlight anymore. Even though there's the Creed movie, which follows his shadow, you never see Carl Weathers that much, but he still looks great. If you ever see him, he looks awesome. Still in shape and looks awesome. And I just haven't seen him in a while be really put in the spotlight. I know Pedro Pascal will be the star of the show, but Carl Weathers, Nick Nolte, Giancarlo Esposito, those are pretty awesome names to me. And also all the directors behind it, I feel. My best guess, it's probably going to be a great show. I feel like with television, you get more creative freedom. I don't know how the Disney streaming service will allow that level of freedom, but if they do, I feel like we're going to get something pretty special.
I think one of the names that's also being overlooked here is Werner Herzog. Now, the great documentary filmmaker, but he is great when he does these movies. I
want him to play a villain.
Oh, God, I hope so.
He would be a great Star Wars villain. Yeah.
One of my favorite appearances of him ever was he was in this poker movie, and I keep forgetting the name of the movie, but I think it's called The Grand. It's him, who just did Woody Harrelson. It was him, Woody Harrelson, and this huge laundry list of comedic names. Okay. And it's about this big, huge stakes poker tournament, and Werner Herzog. And it's fake documentary style, like The Office. And whenever they're talking to Werner Herzog, he's always in his room and he's always sitting with an animal on his lap and he's always petting it. One time it's a chicken, one time it's a rabbit, whatever. And then he finally says, the secret to my endurance is I kill one living thing every day with my bare hands. And that's Werner Herzog.
Vampire, right?
But Pedro Pascal is still the name to me. Like, you got Taika Waititi directing.
Yeah.
You got Dave Filoni in there directing. You got Carrie. I always mispronounce Carrie's last name.
So do
Fugiyama,
I won't try.
believe it is from Dope. You got but it's Pedro Pascal, who was nothing short. Everybody talks about Pedro in terms of Game of Thrones, but he was so good in Narcos.
Yeah.
And then
he stole the show for me in Kingsman.
He absolutely did.
Like, I wasn't even going in really looking forward to his performance, and then he ends up stealing the show for me the entire time.
You know what the funny thing is? I always complain about that Kingsman 2. First of all, I didn't like the movie that much, but Pedro Pascal steals that movie.
Yeah.
And he's in like none of all the posters.
Yeah, he's barely
have
advertised.
Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
They're all Channing Tatum, who is not in the movie for more than 5 minutes. But Pedro Pascal, they just not. But I think he's going to be great in this. And I cannot wait.
I think Werner Herzog should direct an episode of the Star Wars.
That would be so fun. If you want a dark Star Wars episode, you go to Werner
Herzog. You should do the pilot. Just get John Favreau. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the fourth email today. And the fourth email today comes to us from Christian Tyler, who writes, I was bummed out when they canceled Daredevil, but at the same time, I was pretty excited that we could see a new version of him in the MCU soon. Now I just read on Variety that it's going to take years before Disney and Marvel are even allowed to use any version of the character. At this point, how long do you think we're going to have to wait to see the Defenders on the screen again? All right, thanks a lot for the email, Christian. And for those of you who are wondering, maybe you haven't heard about this, you're wondering what exactly Christian's talking about. Variety did this story about, the Defenders and the state of the Defenders. And we've known for a while that we're not just going to see them pop up and the shows are probably done. But Variety went one step further. And in their story, they talk about the actual circumstances surrounding it and what some details of this thing. Here's what the Variety article had to say here. The Variety article wrote this. Sources tell Variety that the deal for the original 4 Marvel shows includes a clause that prevents the characters, not just these shows, but the characters from appearing in any non-Netflix series or film for at least 2 years after cancellation. That means that Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, which were all canceled at Netflix this year, could not come to the Disney streaming service until 2020 at the earliest, and that would be late 2020, probably more like 2021. The chances of the shows returning either on their own or as a new installment of the Defenders is definitely a long shot. So we're starting to see a little bit more of the details emerging here about what can and cannot happen. It seems to me, reading this statement, Greg, that not only can Marvel not just import the show that Netflix had, but they can't even create a new rendition of Daredevil or Luke Cage. At least, realistically, it's 2021 because of how late in the year it is, to at least 2021. What was your reaction when you're reading this and you're hearing about this?
It makes sense to me. I'm bummed about it. Because if you think about Jessica Jones, which is most likely going to get canceled too.
Yep.
That pushes it
in January.
Yeah, I don't think Punisher's included in part of this 4 Marvel show quadrant.
You're absolutely right.
But Jessica Jones, that hasn't even debuted yet, the next season. So that's good. That's even later. You know? Like these 3 shows have probably, like you're saying, until 2021. But Jessica Jones is probably going to be even later than that because that hasn't even debuted yet. And the Punisher's kind of in confusing terrain. I don't know what they will do with it. I feel like if they were, I think the only one that could come back after several years with the same cast and everything that people would genuinely be still excited about, because I watched all the shows.
Right.
I even liked Iron Fist season 2. I really liked Luke Cage season 2. But I think Daredevil would be the only one that has a shot with the same returning crew and cast members behind it, especially Charlie Cox. But I feel like by the time you get to 2-3 years from now, if you were to bring back Mike Coulter and Finn Jones, I don't know if people would be like, yay, Because I wanted to Heroes for Hire.
Back tomorrow that people would be saying.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest with you,
I feel like if you brought back a Heroes for Hire with Luke Cage and Iron Fist after several years, I think that would get them excited. But I think if you were to bring back a solo, Daredevil will be the one that people will be excited about still. I personally don't think these Netflix Marvel shows to transition to the Disney streaming service would work because they're so hard R.
Yeah,
like the violence in them is very R-rated, and there's some sexual scenes as well. That's like you don't really see a lot of graphic stuff, but it's very heavily there.
Implied and suggested.
Yeah. It's like you just don't see like a nipple area or something like that. But other than that, it's still very hard R, and I don't think Disney would take that on. And I think if you were to PG-13 it would just push away the fans who were already fans of the show.
Yeah.
It's like you won't be able to win. I think if you so I think if you were to do the Defenders again, any of these 4 characters, you would have to ultimately reboot it if you're going to put it on the Disney streaming service. I personally like to see Wilson Fisk in the movies. Out of any of them, Daredevil and Wilson Fisk, I think
D'Onofrio is so good in that role.
Wilson Fisk is such a big Spider-Man villain. I would love to see them go up against each other. It would be so fun to watch.
And here's the other thing too, is I'm not even sure that the deal would even allow Marvel to take the existing properties as they are and move them over. But I'm going to tell you what, though, if you're a fan of Daredevil and all this stuff, I'm going to say this isn't actually that big of a deal, and here's why. Because when you're looking at, okay, so you're talking maybe early 2021, that if Marvel wants to use Daredevil in the MCU and create a new incarnation, whatever, 2021, okay, that seems like going to turn you away. But the reality is this, I think. Kevin Feige, I believe he's already got the MCU programmed up to 2021.
Oh,
like
yeah.
at this point, even if I think the Netflix deal allowed them to use these characters now, whenever they wanted to use, I still don't think we would have seen these guys pop up at least until 2021 because Kevin Feige seems to make his plans.
Okay.
He sticks with his plans. He doesn't, react to different things happening. Like a lot of people thought that once this Fox deal with Marvel or with Disney is finalized,
I gotta throw the X-Men in here as soon as possible.
That Magneto's gonna show up. It's like, no, that's not the way. Have you met Kevin Feige? That is not the way Kevin Feige operates. He's never been reactionary to this stuff, right? He's got his plan, he'll stick to it. So while it does give a little pang in my heart when I hear about we're not going to see Daredevil for at least like 2 or 3 more years, the reality is we probably weren't going to see him for 2 or 3 years anyway.
Okay.
So I'm not going to get too worked up about it at this
You mean
point.
even without the contract clauses and all that being here, you'd still think it would be quite a while?
I still think it would be a while before Kevin Feige decided to work him in.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah, I agree with you there. Like, this doesn't really change my opinion on that. Yeah.
Although one person on my chat did make an interesting suggestion. I think they said, they might have been talking about Daredevil, that Daredevil could have been a character you added in as a secondary character in a Black Widow movie. And I went, oh, actually, that's not a bad idea, but it looks like that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, well, let's move on now to the final email of the day. And our final email today comes to us from one of our Patreon supporters, Jeremy Sneed, who writes, thanks for bringing this film community together to help brighten each day. Well, thanks so much for that, Jeremy. Love the Elseworlds crossover. However, as you've pointed out, Warner Brothers had never let Batman or Superman near the small screen. Now they are name-dropping Bats and Supes is on screen. Do you think this is because Walter Hamada is steering away from Bats and Superman on the big screen? Or is it possible a certain event from Elseworlds is crossing TV with the big screen with Multiverses? Thanks, and let's get filthy. All right, so I talked a lot about the other day the recent what do they Elseworlds about Elseworlds, right? I look forward to the Arrowverse crossover every year. I thought last year's Crisis on Earth X was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I did watch that.
And I've liked the previous incarnations, and this one not as good as last year, and it feels like a setup for next year's crossover.
That's how everyone, I haven't seen it yet, but that's what everyone told me about.
Yeah, but still enjoyable, still some fun. I still hate the way they treat Superman in these things, but I ranted on that long enough yesterday. Don't worry, guys, I'm not about to go into that again today. But it is an interesting notion, and I'll tell you why again. Let me tell you my theory here, and then I want to see what you say to this.
Sure.
You suggest off the top the idea of, is DC going to cross over their TV and movie universes? My first reaction is, hell no. This is the smartest thing to me. The smartest thing they've ever done is keeping their TV and their movie universes separate. They're not going to do that, blah, 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 blah. However, and I still don't think they will, but let's put on the tinfoil hat for a second.
Sure.
If you wanted to see possibilities that this could be what they're leading up to, there are enough breadcrumbs here that I think would make it not insane. Breadcrumb number one, the very fact that we are getting this show, Crisis on Infinite Earths. If you guys know much about the comic history, DC Comics for a long time was getting very convoluted with all their different realities and all their different Earths, and they kind of came up with Crisis on Infinite Earths with the Anti-Monitor and stuff to kind of merge everything and simplify the DC universe and bring it all to one planet. That could kind of be a reflection of bringing the movie and TV universes together, if you wanted to look at it that way. Another thing to look at it is this. Superman is in the Arrowverse.
Yes.
Warner Brothers seems to have no plans for a movie version of Superman right now.
True.
Flash is in the Arrow universe. This supposed Flash movie they've been talking about for years now continues to get delayed more and more, to the point that right now we have no official word on what is happening with the Flash movie. We see Warner Brothers starting to slant a little more female.
Okay.
So we've got Supergirl. You can see that Wonder Woman is kind of leading the charge there. I would say this. I don't think that they are leading towards merging the television and the movie universes with Crisis on Infinite Earths. But even though I don't think that's what they're going to do, if you were to come up to me in the street and say, John, I think they are, I got to go, I can't call you crazy over that, because there are enough breadcrumbs there to at least give you the idea that maybe it's something that they'll do. I don't think they will. I think it's a good idea to keep them separate. That's the one thing Warner Brothers, I think, has done better with their comic book universe than Marvel has. Keep them separate. But, you know, I mentioned all those things there. The Superman issue, the Flash issue, the fact that the very nature of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Right.
Some people suggesting that they're going to do that just because, you know, Supergirl is on Earth 38, Flash and Arrow are on Earth 1. Maybe they just want to simplify the TV world. But I can't call you crazy if you think they're going to merge them. Greg, you've seen all of this. You've read all of this. You've heard me out. What do you think they're doing?
I don't think for one second. I'm there with you in the sense that if someone believes it, I can't really argue against it. Right. All I can really say is that there's already television shows from DC that, like, one thing with Marvel is all their live action shows are connected. But with DC, they have live action shows that aren't even connected. Like Titans and Black Lightning is kind of a muddied territory. I saw the first.
Just recently, in the second season, they had one episode where he makes a reference to a character in one of the other Arrowverse shows. It was the first time they even showed the slightest connection.
I remember in the first season, I can't remember which character, someone name dropped Supergirl, but they're not really
I don't even remember that.
making the effort to really connect them. But you know, they got Titans, and then you got Krypton, which
is way out there,
and that's connected to the movies. So let's play like devil's advocate here. If they were to connect the movies, which movie characters do you think they would bring into this Crisis on Infinite Earth crossover?
Oh God!
Like, could you afford that?
Because they don't have big budgets.
Yeah.
I mean, they do a pretty good job with low budgets, but
sometimes their effects are like.
Yeah. I kind of just look past the effects. I go, I get what.
But if they can't afford
for.
like better effects, can they really afford, you know, Margot Robbie to show up as Harley Quinn or Will Smith as Deadshot? Like the ones who are consistently still going to be active in the DCU. I feel like out of all the celebrities, Jason Momoa would be the most on board because he just likes to have a fun time.
Yes, he does.
But then I just feel like you kind of get into confusing territory because you do make a good point about. They have a Superman right now, but the movies don't really seem to have a Superman.
They seem to be moving away from him.
The Batman's kind of confusing what they're doing. I feel like it would just kind of confuse people. Do I think it would be cool? Hell yeah. It'd be cool. I would love that. That would be awesome. Do I think they're going to do it? No, but I do think it would be cool to do.
You know what? I made some pretty good points about Superman and Flash. Your whole point about the sheer magnitude of trying to make that happen. Your point beats my point. So I'm going to
catch me on movie fights, guys.
I think your point beats my point on that. All right, guys, listen, that'll do it for the email segment here today. But you know, as we do every day on the John Campea Show, we'd like to save a little bit of time and take some live questions. So that's what we're going to do right now. So let's jump over to the live chat board right now. And our first live question today comes to us from our good buddy Kevin Rubio, director of the greatest Star Wars fan film of all time, Troops. Kevin writes, congrats to Anne's acceptance at USC. Well, thank you for my wife Anne just got accepted into a brand new program at USC. She is in pursuit of, I believe it is going to be her 4th degree, her 2nd master's. She's just way more intelligent and ambitious than I will ever be in my life. But thanks for that, Kevin. Christopher Baker writes, nothing. He just sends a super chat. Thank you so much for that, Christopher. Ben Hayusa writes, debating whether I should see Mortal Engines tonight. Well, if the opening of the show has not convinced you, then you should probably save your money on that. But listen, if you're a fan of the original books, you might want to go check it out anyway. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean you won't like it. So if it looks really appealing to you, by all means, go and check it out. Just, you know, you've been warned. Maha Norbai writes, best young actor, Timothy Chalamet, Tom Holland, Ansel Elgort.
Chalamet.
Oh, you said that faster than even I could.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's no question,
yeah,
right?
It's Chalamet. I mean, he's just demonstrated the most range he has, and then, like, the most life in all of his performances too. Like he may not be known for being like funny, like Tom Holland's known to be funny, but Chalamet, he has humor in a lot of his work, and he can do like the heavy, hard-hitting drama. Holland's a great actor. Elgort, I don't really think has had enough, you know, filmography to really. Maybe someone will argue me on that, but just in the public sphere, he just hasn't had as much of an opportunity to present that range. I think Chalamet has definitely presented that range and genre.
Did they not just announce recently? Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought they just announced that Elgort was just cast by Spielberg in West Side Story.
I think that was announced recently, which would be cool.
But it'd be cool. Yeah. At least that'll give us an opportunity to see what kind of range he has. We haven't really had a chance to see his range. But I'm with Greg 100% on this. It's Timothy Chalamet, no doubt. Okay. Kara Black writes, have you ever had a chance to read the Crisis on Infinite Earth series? And if so, did you like it? Yeah, I mean, the thing was, it is one of the more important, I'm not going to say it's one of the best stories ever written, but it's one of the more important stories that they've done in the history of comic books because it kind of saved DC. And the way they simplified the universe and brought it all together is really important. And by the way, so if you want to read something that's really important, by all means, go and read that. And it is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not good. It's good. But its importance almost outweighs its quality in many ways. Let's see. PGML writes, since Deadpool is its own universe, I think, and I'm not sure Wolverine joined the X-Men because in both movies, Colossus says that X-Men don't kill. Am I putting too much thought into this? Oh, yeah, you are putting too much thought into this. And I'll tell you why. I think what Colossus was saying, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, Greg, but I just love the way you respond. I think what Colossus was saying is like, as X-Men, we don't straight up murder. But look, he brought Deadpool into the X-Men, and he had killed lots of people before that. So I don't know if that one bit of semantics necessarily excludes the idea that Deadpool could be in the same universe as the rest of the X-Men. I don't know. How would you answer that, Greg?
I mean, did Wolverine join the X-Men? Is that what the question essentially comes down to? Because he killed...
must be a separate universe because in that other universe, X-Men or Wolverine joins the X-Men, and over in this universe, Colossus says X-Men don't kill, so they must be two separate universes.
No, I mean, I think Wolverine is totally a part of the X-Men.
And I think it's totally a part of the
X-Men
same universe.
The Last Stand, he flat out says, we're X-Men. Yeah, he looks right at everyone. Yeah.
Let's see here. Ma writes again, I was really sad when Crimes of Grindelwald got such poor reviews. Do you think the next movie will suffer? Still, it doesn't come out until 2020. I'll tell you what,
You liked it.
I did.
Yeah, I remember you were on that spectrum. I wasn't, but I remember you were one of the people that really liked it.
And the funny thing is I'm not a Potterhead. Yeah, I'm not a big Potter fan, but I was with one of the biggest Potterheads I've ever met in my life, Cody Miller, the Olympic swimmer. Yeah. And he actually flew here from Indiana. I got on Twitter. Here's in case you guys didn't know this. I got on. I had a spare ticket because I got 2 tickets for this special event, early screening of Crimes of Grindelwald at the IMAX home offices. They were doing this big special event.
And you flew for that?
Well, yeah. I was going to bring Anne, but I took because Anne is also a huge Potterhead. But Anne, I forgot she was traveling overseas.
Okay.
So I had a spare ticket. So I just got on my social media and said, "Hey, anybody I actually know in real life want to go see this?" Cody Miller texts me. He lives in Indiana. He's like, dude, I will fly there.
I will swim there.
I will swim there. I will fly there tomorrow to come see this if you still got the ticket available. I'm like, dude, do it. He literally got on a plane, flew out the morning of the screening. We saw the screening, and he took a 6 a.m. flight the next day to fly back to Indiana.
Did he like the movie?
And he did.
Okay.
He liked the movie. But here's the thing. I don't think the critic reviews are going to hurt it at all. And as much as, I got to look up the box office results, but I think that the box office results, if anything, may hurt its chances. But you weren't on the end of the spectrum that liked it?
I personally was very bored when I watched the movie. I did. And that was the only Potter movie I did not like. But
did you like the first?
I did. I actually liked the first Fantastic Beasts.
So did
I. But I think that I think the reviews kind of do have a hindrance on it because I think it has a fairly low audience score for a Potter movie. I think it's still certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes on the audience score, but it's still pretty low for that. But I think that if it comes out with early reviews, the next one, because they're definitely going to make another one, but I think if it comes out with good feedback, people will show up. I think people listen to what the internet says and what Rotten Tomatoes says now more than ever. As much as people on the internet say stuff like that stuff shouldn't matter, it does. People do factor it in. People factor it in. If it gets great reviews, people are going to show up for it. That's why I think Bumblebee's probably going to do well too, because it's getting such great feedback that even though the last Transformers movie dipped in box office, I think people will show up for this one. Same thing with Fantastic Beasts. I have a feeling J.K. Rowling's going to take the criticism into consideration, that she will actually reevaluate a little bit. Same thing with David Yates. I personally think they should change directors. I feel like David Yates didn't dream as a child of becoming a director to only direct Harry Potter movies. And I feel like to me it's kind of showing. So I think if they change directors to kind of give some excitement to it, that could be something special.
Let me ask you this. This has been, we kind of talked about this on my show before, but I'd love to know your opinion on this. David Yates has been a constant through all this kind of stuff. But one of the variables, one of the changes has been, look, 2 of the least well-received Potter films have been the 2 Fantastic Beasts movies. J.K. never used to write the screenplays for the Potter films. She did write the screen. Could that be the variable? Is it a matter? Should J.K. stand back and say, look, I'll write the story. I'll write the 5-page story. Yeah. Then let's hand it over to a screenwriter. Is that a change that you should
feel like, if anything, she could write like a really detailed outline.
Right.
But semi-novel-like, and then have someone come on board to co-write at least. I think the thing is, and I don't blame people, I'd be afraid to tell JK, maybe you're not doing this right.
Yeah, no.
I'd be terrified to tell her that.
She is the boss.
But I bet people, even David Yates is like, I don't know if I should say something. It's scary. Like, she's created all this, So yeah, I'd be very surprised. But people won't ever get sick of Harry Potter. I was just at Universal Studios, and those lines are still insanely long just to go on one ride for So
all right, let's go over to PGML, who writes, I don't think that Warner Brothers will cross the two DC universes. It could be, or it would be, too much to handle. I think they could find a way to handle it. I'm not so worried about that, but I kind of agree with you, PGML. I don't think they're going to do it. And I think Greg brought up a great point about just on a practical level, could you even do that when you've got a universe with these huge personalities? That may not be the wisest thing in the world. Luke Woodward writes, I watched The Soloist last night, with Robert Downey Jr. For the first time. Have you seen it? Great performances from Robert Downey Jr. and Jamie Foxx. This is one of those films
I haven't seen it. Have you?
I have seen it. And now it was years ago. I mean, I can't remember. It was like 7 years ago. But it's one of those films to me, and we see these every once in a while, where the performances were better than the screenplay actually deserved. And it's based on a true story. The Soloist is based on a real series of articles that were written in the LA Times years before. And so there's something really cool that it's based on a true story. But it wasn't executed great, but you're absolutely right. Robert Downey Jr. and Jamie Foxx were both fantastic in it. Let's see. Aaron Strelinsky writes, how do you feel about so many people knowing Spider-Man's secret identity in the MCU, particularly Aunt May? How can you fight crime if your parents know? Well, that's always been my problem. Is that my mom and dad, they just know. But remember this too. In this MCU, almost nobody in the MCU actually has
a secret identity. They're all known. Everyone knows who they are.
Spider-Man's like the only one who has a quasi, as Dr. Evil would say, quasi secret identity.
True.
So I don't know. So how many people do know who he's Spider-Man? Well, there's
Vulture, Aunt May, Ned.
And Aunt May just found out.
Yeah, but in terms of like the other superheroes knowing, that doesn't really count. But in terms of people non-super, Ned, Aunt May, and Vulture. They're the 3 I can think of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the TV shows.
Yeah.
Where in the TV show, superhero shows, a new person finds out the hero's identity every week.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think he'll be fine. By the way, how great was that reveal of Aunt May discovering he was?
That was amazing.
That was so
surprising, and that to me solidifies a lot more uniqueness with this Spider-Man.
I completely
because we haven't
agree.
seen that in any of the Spider-Man movies.
All right, Danny Ramuni writes, 2019 comic book box office rank predictions: Avengers, no brainer. Spider-Man: Far From Home, Shazam, Captain Marvel. You think Captain Marvel's going to make less than Shazam? Dark Phoenix, Joker, New Mutants. You know what? I think I'm right on board with your list. The only thing I would do is I would probably swap Captain Marvel for Shazam.
Yeah.
But I think I would keep it that exact same order, just with Captain Marvel in the third spot. Avengers, Spider-Man, I go Captain Marvel. How do you see that working out?
Did Ray just do that?
Oh, I missed it. What did I miss? What did Ray put up? What did Ray put up?
Some text came across the screen and said
wrong. Okay, Ray. What do you think the order's going to be? But that's wrong. How do you see the order shaking out?
I agree with this order.
Even with Shazam in front of Captain Marvel?
No, I mean with your order. I'm sorry. Yeah, Captain Marvel I think would go first. I would probably swap Dark Phoenix and Joker, honestly. I feel like Joker's going to... People are evidently so much more excited for Joker than they are for Dark Phoenix. And... yeah, I would swap Dark Phoenix and Joker. I think when you think about it, you're like, well, Dark Phoenix is going to make more money, but I think Joker will be the one that surprises us with the box
and you know
office.
what? I am quite excited for New Mutants. but
I am too.
I
yeah.
cannot disagree with it being in that I mean, it's just it's not going to make big money.
I don't know why it's been pushed so much, but when I saw the first trailer, I thought that looked really cool. A horror X-Men movie seems like something that's on brand for my kind of taste.
Cast too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. John Early writes, do you consider It's a Wonderful Life to be a Christmas movie? Because I've heard the argument that it's set at Christmas and its book ended at Christmas, but it's not a Christmas movie. Well, that's a fair question because we often talk about, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
That question.
I firmly believe Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. I mean, it happens at Christmas time. Yeah. So it's fair to ask, but I think if you really watch It's a Wonderful Life, Christmas DNA is all throughout that movie. And Christmas becomes a theme of the movie as well, and the spirit of Christmas and blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to say you're wrong if you don't find it to be a Christmas movie, but I look at it and I find the Christmas DNA all through it.
Especially in the finale.
Absolutely.
Like, I barely remember It's a Wonderful Life, but what I remember is the finale when he's running home all happy, Angel gets his wings, and I'm like, that's all Christmas to me right there.
And the little girl hanging the thing on the tree.
Yeah, I know it's sad and all, but do you consider Lethal Weapon a Christmas movie?
I do not.
Okay, all right.
But I've never asked you, do you consider Die Hard to be a Christmas movie?
I feel like if you think it is, I'll give it to you. But it doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel like a Christmas movie. It's like saying Reindeer Games is a Christmas movie, but
Oh my God, that's such a great analogy. Because you do get two different points of view. Bruce Willis says it's not a Christmas movie, but the director says he thinks it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And then they put out the 25th anniversary, the 20th or 25th anniversary Blu-ray, and it's got Christmas theme on the Blu-ray, but to me, it's clearly not a Christmas movie.
I think Christmas movie encompasses so much in terms of feeling and tone, themes.
Yes.
Just because you have trees there and lights and music doesn't mean it's a Christmas movie.
All right. Rufino Salazar Jr. writes, when Spider-Man comes on screen in Infinity War, he tells Tony he was on a field trip. Chances Far From Home is before Infinity War. Over under 40%. It's a prequel. This is something that's been brought up to me a lot, Greg, because a lot of people say, hey, when we see Peter in the beginning of Infinity War, he's on a school bus coming back from a trip. What are the chances that Far From Home is a prequel to it and it ends with him being on that bus coming back from the trip? I see where you're coming from, but that has to be one fuck of a bus that can drive them back from London. Because we already know Spider-Man Far From Home.
I did not think about that.
They're in Europe. He's all over Europe. So that has got to be one hell of a bus, man, if that's what they're coming. And then you could say, well, no, the bus picks them up from the airport. Where's their luggage?
Yeah.
It's a school bus. No, and I could be wrong about this, but I thought I remember hearing Kevin Feige says, no, this all takes place after it.
Yeah,
so
and I think
I'll
Amy Pascal just came out saying that it takes place like a little bit after the end of Avengers 4. Was it Amy Pascal? Someone came out and said, I'm pretty sure she just came out and said that recently.
All right, so the 40% I'll take. Look, I'm not.
She said they pull him out of the Soul Stone and everything. She said all this.
I'm not going to say it's 0%, but if you're going to set the over/under line at 40%, I'm going to take the way under on that. I'm going to take way under on that. I'm upset. Writes, are you looking forward to the beach bum with Matthew McConaughey? You know what? I kind of am. When I saw the trailer, I don't know if you've had a chance to see the trailer.
I have. Yeah.
I saw it. I'm like, I read the synopsis first. I'm like, meh. And then I saw the trailer. I'm like, this could be fun. So yeah, I'm on board for it. Are you on board for it?
Harmony Korine makes the most interesting films. Maybe it's funny how was Harmony Korine a man or a woman?
I honestly don't know.
The director, Harmony Korine, makes movies that have good trailers. Right. And then the movies end up being so different from the trailers. Like Spring Breakers was a movie I enjoyed, but I know a lot of people don't. And I have a feeling, what's up? It's a guy. Okay. And I have a feeling Beach Bum is going to be the same thing, where it's kind of this hypnotic stream of consciousness film. Yeah.
All right. Murray Reich writes, while your point about Tony being rescued by Captain Marvel is unlikely because of the vastness of space, we do need to keep in mind two things. Thor was somehow rescued by the Guardians of the Galaxy. Also, it's the movie universe we're dealing with. Well, it's the movie universe we're dealing with, yes, but in the Thor Guardians of the Galaxy thing, you're forgetting a very important thing. The Guardians of the Galaxy specifically went to that spot.
They got a signal,
because they were going to try to go there and make some money, right? Mm-hmm. So they were like a light year away. The notion that Captain Marvel, who's just... First of all, we don't even know Captain Marvel is going to start off Earth. We don't know that.
Yeah.
But there's this theory going around that Captain Marvel in Avengers 4 is going to be at some place in the galaxy and is going to be traveling to Earth and just so happens to stumble across Tony.
I doubt it. I think that's too repetitive, and I don't think the Russos would do it, especially because of the fact that the Guardians found Thor. It would just be kind of reminiscent of that to me. And to do that for 2 movies in a row, I don't see the Russo brothers doing that, because part of the cool thing about Tony Stark is that when he's put in a tight spot, he manages to figure his way out on his own. Yeah.
Let me tell you my theory. I believed that everything we see in the trailer of Avengers Endgame, I believe it all happens in the first act of the film. I believe Tony...
It looks like that.
I believe Tony gets rescued and brought back and all that kind of stuff right in the first act of the film.
Yeah.
So,
he grabs Burger King, yeah.
He grabs Burger King. All right, Nathan Oswald writes, not to bring up the Disney gun issue, but
you
I
are.
got to feel you're about to anyway. Not to bring up the Disney gun issue, but I guess Disney is okay continuing to work over the years with Tim Allen, considering he had legal trouble with drug trafficking and a DUI. Look, man.
This territory of actors under the Disney umbrella.
No, I mean, I remember after this whole thing with Gunn went down, I actually did a list on the show of here's all these people that Disney continues to work with today and all of their misdeeds that they've done in the past, right? Look, if you're suggesting, Nathan, that there's a little bit of hypocrisy involved here, oh, dude, we're way beyond that.
Everyone's on board for that.
I mean, we have covered that. I completely agree with you, but we've already been over that territory, man. By the way, I never had a chance to ask you your impression of, and I haven't looked at your channel since this dropped, but was the Brightburn. Speaking of James Gunn, the Brightburn. What were your thoughts on the Brightburn? Because I ate it up.
Loved it.
Yeah, man.
And we do a lot of reactions on our channel, and that to me, in terms of just, I like doing the commentary side of things, but in terms of reaction, that is one of my favorite ones I've done this year because I had zero interest in what I was about to watch. And then you literally see me go, this looks awesome. I was excited for it. Yeah.
I'm watching it, and I'm like, I was telling Robert, I was like, the first minute into it, I'm just annoyed. I was like, this is just blatantly a Superman ripoff. What's going on?
What the hell?
And then it took its turn.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, let's see. Jason on
you know it's written by 2 gun people? Like,
it's his brothers, yeah.
Oh, they're his brothers? Dang, I believe like the Wayans, huh?
Well,
yeah,
there's
so many
This
of them.
whole movie is 6 degrees of James Gunn. The screenplay. You've got Elizabeth Banks, who worked with him on Slither.
Right.
The dude who plays Elizabeth Banks' husband, the Pa Kent in it,
is in The Office, who's Jenna Fisher's. Yeah.
And James Gunn was married to Jenna Fisher. I mean, so the whole movie is James Gunn's universe, and it's being directed by a guy. James Gunn hired this guy who's been in a bunch of James Gunn's movies to be the director of it as well. So it's got James Gunn all over the place on it. Jason Ngako writes, a movie about Dwayne McDuffie's icon, an alien that takes the identity of a black Civil War slave who becomes present-day black Republican Superman. I have no idea what you're talking about.
What does that even mean?
I'll be honest, off the top of my head, I don't even recognize the name Dwayne McDuffie. It's probably somebody I should know, but I don't. So I'm let you guys talk about that in the chat board because I don't know where he's going with that. I'm Upset writes, if the new Terminator bombs, is the franchise dead? Dude, they've said that for every Terminator movie that's been coming out. Hey, if Terminator Genisys bombs, is it dead?
Yeah.
Hey, if this one, look,
I'm personally excited for this one because did you watch the Hollywood Reporter interview or the Variety one, the 45-minute one with Tim Miller and James Cameron?
I saw segments of it, yeah.
I watched that whole thing, and
really?
Knowing James Cameron's involved, like it wasn't like they're just saying typical BS. They really know what they're doing with this one, and I trust what they're doing. At least I'm taking a leap of faith here.
See, I don't buy. I've heard James Cameron say so much about how involved he is in this Terminator and blah, blah, and I don't buy it for a second.
Really?
And I'll tell you
I think
why.
You should watch the interview.
I'll tell you, no, I don't care. I'm telling you, I believe he's lying through his teeth, and here's why I believe he's lying through his teeth. He is working on not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Avatar sequels.
Yeah.
And he is, when you are directing a movie, particularly one like Avatar, where do you have time to actually be involved in something else? I don't buy it for a second.
They say he pretty much talked about it like he would check in with the writer's room and go over like the outlines and everything like that.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? I remember when the first Transformers movie was coming out, and they did those interviews with Michael Bay and Steven Spielberg talking about Transformers. Like, Steven Spielberg hasn't given more than 10 minutes of thought to this franchise, but he's doing all the promos with Michael Bay, right? But you know what? He probably is a little bit more involved.
What gets me concerned is the fact of when Genesis was coming out and they had those James Cameron interviews going on.
And you talk about how great it is.
Yeah, and because that's what sold me on the film was, this is probably going to be awesome. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Eric Saul, who writes, if Pixar makes me cry over a spork, I'm done. I was a mess at the end of Toy Story 3, and I don't know if I'm ready to do it again with Toy Story 4. And Eric's just kind of repeating that great point you brought up about Pixar does the emotional element so well.
Yeah.
I mean, just over and over, whether it's Up or the end of... And you're right, man. First of all, it's not just an animated film. One of the most beautiful moments I've ever seen in any movie was near the end of Toy Story 3, when they are sliding into the furnace.
Yeah. Haunting.
And they're desperately trying to get out, and at some point, I think it's Woody's the first one who just accepts their fate.
Yeah.
And he looks to each other and says, you know what? I'm just glad I'm here with you. He doesn't say it out loud, but you can say, I'm just glad I'm here with you. And they all join hands. And I just about broke down. And that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a movie. And yeah, if they pull something like more of that bullshit and then Toy Story 4, I'm probably going to lose it. Robert Kessler writes, I have 2 finals left. Please pray for me, John. Yeah, I've been getting messages from you guys. For those of you who are in university right now, you're going into your finals week. God bless you and Godspeed, man, because I know that's a rough time. Samuel Woodward writes, what did Peter Piper say to the woodchuck when the woodchuck chuckled? When the woodchuck chucked all of Peter Piper's peppers? Probably 7. I'm gonna guess. That's my guess. My guess is 7. Robert Kessler writes, whoops, I sent that twice, but you deserve a pal. No problem. Thanks a lot, Robert. Rafael Estrada writes, John, Greg, John, Robert, all of you need to organize a trip and come to CC. That's the Brazilian thing. CCXP here in Brazil next year. Well, apparently, if we want to watch the Spider-Man footage, we got to go to Brazil. But yeah, this Brazil thing, I remember I just really heard about it for the first time last year.
Yeah.
And then I saw the images from it. It's like, this thing might be bigger than New York City Comic Con.
I was surprised. I didn't know about it until this year.
Really?
Actually, I didn't know about it last year.
But it looks massive.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the same place that, like, this Brazil knows how to party.
They know how to party.
And
like
it would
Vin
give me
Diesel
a chance.
says.
See if I can find where the Royce Gracie has his jiu-jitsu place. I'd love to visit Royce Gracie's jiu-jitsu place. All right. Ben Hayusa writes, oh my God, what's up, Greg?
Sup, Ben?
I watch The Real Rejects all the time and your reactions.
Thanks, Ben. I love you. Pay more super chat money now. Wrong.
Thanks.
Stop flashing that right.
Thanks for the thanks for sending that in, Ben. But remember, this is my damn show.
Yeah.
How lucky are we, by the way, that we got Greg to come in here today? I was so glad you came in. Okay, Levi Road writes, and we just got a few minutes left here, guys. Levi Road writes, watched Mowgli, liked it. All I'm going to say is boots. Oh my God. Yeah, okay, you're right. Look,
what does that mean?
I did not like, I'll tell you what it meant. I won't go into details because I don't want to spoil it, but I did watch Mowgli, the one directed by Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
I love Andy Serkis. I was very excited to see it. I didn't like it.
Okay.
I wish I did. But there's a character, a little albino wolf, a little misfit, kind of like Mowgli is. And his name's Boots. And they do something with Boots that is easily the highlight of the movie, Levi. It was the highlight of the movie, no doubt. Didn't make up for the rest of it to me, but I can tell you more about it off camera.
I thought you were going to say they did something horrible.
No, they did something really moving with that character that is easily the highlight of the movie, but I'll tell you off screen.
I do want to watch it. I do.
Okay, let's see. Suthrius85 writes, holy moly, longtime viewer and follower, but first time doing this chat thing. Well, thanks so much, man. Please keep on keeping on with what you do, Mr. Campea, no matter if you're in your home studio, the big studio, or in a back alley somewhere. Thank you for what you do. Well, thank you so much for that, man. And, you know, my favorite part of always, over the years, ever since I started the movie blog back in 2003, my favorite part about doing all this is the fact that we have this fan community and that we all get together in this virtual environment. You guys in the chat, by the way, the chat boards on YouTube are often a very toxic place. the chapboard that these guys do is always just fun.
I noticed.
And I love that we have this community here. And thank you so much, Suthius, for being a part of it. And keep on keeping on, and I'll keep on keeping on, my friend. Grandmaster writes, your chemistry is perfect. Well, there you go, Greg. Apparently, we matched on eHarmony.
He's talking about your chemistry with yourself.
My chemistry with myself. Well, as you know, again, Greg is apparently my son from the future, has traveled back in time.
Happy to be here, Father.
Where do we go? eHero Andrew writes, Elseworlds really pissed me off when they used the Smallville theme. When they go to Supergirl's world, I felt so tricked and lied to. If you haven't seen it,
is that what they did?
I thought it was great. Okay, so here, I thought this was great. There's this moment in Elseworlds where they go to Earth 38, which is where Supergirl, that's where Supergirl world. And they actually go and they use the actual same farm and the same set
how cool.
that they used in Smallville. And when they cut to it, they start with a wide shot because, you have these establishing shots, right?
Yeah.
They cut to this wide shot with the camera coming in, showing the farm. And as they did it, they play, somebody save me. And they run and play that whole thing. And they actually play the tune. And I knew we weren't going to see
Tom Welling.
Or Michael
Rosenbaum.
Yeah. I knew we weren't going to see them. I thought it was, I'll be honest with you, man. I thought it was a nice little shout
tribute? Okay.
I thought it was a nice tribute. Because I know because Ann used to love Smallville.
Okay.
When that music played, Ann's ears perked up, right? I thought it was just a nice tribute. I thought it was a nice wink. But
it would have been cool because I saw the last 20 minutes of Smallville. I watched like the first 5 seasons and the last 20 minutes of the show, the series. And what they do with the suit was just so embarrassing. And did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was like, it might have been cool if he showed up in a suit.
Okay, Jack Richards writes, is the Wile E. Coyote movie going to be about Wile E. Suing Acme for their crappy products? I think it would make a great court case movie. Listen, I know a lot of people thought it was dumb and reacted very badly to it, and that's cool. I love this idea of a Wile E. Coyote movie. I think this is going to be great. And it's actually, Acme is actually in the name of the movie, I think. I think when they announced, it's been a while since we talked about it, but I think when they announced the name of the title of the movie, I think Acme was in there. I hope there's something to do with it because, oh man, you could not release the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote stuff today.
Yeah.
Like if they had never done it before, you could not do it the way they do it with so violent.
Yeah.
It's so like Wile E. Coyote is a zombie at this point. He's literally murdered multiple times. I mean, it's
you'll need to trade all that violence in with pop culture references. Or
yeah, that's here's hoping that's not what happens. Santez Henderson writes, John, I completely agree with you on the treatment of Superman on your Crisis review. Why have a great character if you're only going to poop on him? Crapping on him doesn't make her better. Yeah. So what he's talking about here, Greg, is that the issue. I've had an issue with the way they've treated Superman in this universe, in that
you're the first person I know to say that.
Really, they've treated him as a jobber. To use wrestling terminology, like they have him come in just so Supergirl can beat him up and put over Supergirl. And then in this Elseworlds thing, in Elseworlds, all Superman does his entire Elseworlds thing is spend time getting his ass handed to him. He just gets beat up all the time. The only contribution he makes to the show is that he opens a book for a second, but then that's undone because they just take the book away from him. And then he saved Lois Lane from falling. So there was that. All the rest of Elseworlds, he's getting the absolute crap kicked out of him. And then to put the cherry on top, they have him talking to Kara, his cousin at the end, going, you know, Kara, I often forget just how much stronger you are than me. And then and then they have Superman say, you know what? The world doesn't need Superman if Supergirl's here. Because he's talking about how he's going to take off. I just realized the world doesn't need Superman because Supergirl's. And their CW's treatment of Superman, I went off about it for about 15 minutes on my show yesterday. I was so pissed off. Like, and my analogy is this. Can you imagine if they brought Batman onto Arrow just to have Arrow beat up Batman and have Batman go, oh, Arrow, you're so much stronger than me. Gotham doesn't need me, it needs you. It's like, I like Arrow and everything, but you do not disrespect Batman that way. And I feel like that's the exact same thing they've been doing with Superman.
It sounds like a very forced way to push Supergirl out of Superman's shadow.
And the thing what Santos is saying is this. I get, you need to put your hero over. I get that. But you don't have to crap on another character, the granddaddy of all superheroes of all time. there's other ways to put your character over, and I just don't like the way they've treated Superman.
Kind of like, fuck Batman.
Yeah. I won't even get into that. Evil Eye writes, love the show. Thoughts on DC's Titans TV show? You know, I still haven't started watching
transition.
it. That's called a vertical right there. I still haven't started watching it because I'm not going to get DC streaming service until Swamp Thing starts, and then I'll probably catch it. Have you had a chance to watch Titans
I have
at all?
not had a chance to see it. I've heard it's better than a lot of people thought.
I've heard
it's
decent
actually
things.
pretty good.
Ray, I know you've been wanting to watch it. Did you start watching it?
No, you said to wait till all the episodes are out.
Since when do you listen to me?
Are the episodes out yet? All the episodes?
No, not yet.
Oh yeah, that's great because there's a 7-day free trial.
Okay.
So what Ray and my strategy was: wait till all the episodes are out, then do the 7-day trial so you can bitch. Yeah.
Hey, internet, here's what I'm doing.
I just ruined the scam for everybody. All right, last question of the. I'll do 2 questions more. Patrick Conway writes, so can Marvel use Cox and Vince after 2020? Hope so. I don't think they can. I think they have to do new incarnations, but I don't know that 100%. But my suspicion is that they cannot use Cox as Daredevil, Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. But like you, Patrick, I am going to keep my fingers crossed because Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, to me, needs to be spoken in the same breath as Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Robert Downey Jr. As Iron Man, Chris Evans as Captain America.
Yeah.
He was just born for that role, man.
It's amazing, and Wilson Fisk is such an integral Marvel villain. Like I grew up on the animated shows, and when I think of the Spider-Man animated series, I always imagine Kingpin. I do. So I think that Kingpin should be in the movies, and Vincent D'Onofrio would be. I think you could bring Kingpin into like a Spider-Man movie and still keep it PG-13. He doesn't like swear and stuff, and he doesn't need to bash Spider-Man's head in with a car. And
if you do, you just can't show blood.
Yeah, exactly. But you could still bring Kingpin into the movies.
All right, last question I'll do today comes to us from Murray Reich, who writes, heard this wild scenario. If the Browns win out, Steelers lose out, Ravens lose, one of 2. Browns can win the NFC North. Actually, that's true. There is so much congestion right now in the middle of the pack. Browns have already won 5 games. I'm predicting because I picked, by the way, at the beginning of the season, I picked Cleveland Browns will win 5 games this year.
I'll say whatever you say on this one, John.
A lot of people thought I was crazy, but it's an insane scenario. But it can actually work that out. It's not going to. That's too many moving pieces there, but it's not going to. But since that wasn't an entertainment question, I will take one more. Robert Tari writes, over or under 20%. Harrison Ford comes back in a flashback in episode 9, and they somehow reunite the Trinity. Would you like that?
Star Wars Episode 9, the course correction.
Yeah. I'm going to take the under. Look, we all know this. This is common knowledge. One of the main reasons they killed off Han Solo is because Harrison Ford wasn't going to do it unless you killed off Han Solo. And while it is true that during the promotional tour for Episode 7, we have never seen Harrison Ford that enthusiastic and that happy and truly enjoying himself. Yeah. He never enjoys himself.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in a while. While that may be true, I really do think Harrison has put Han Solo behind him.
I mean,
but
what about Leia though? I mean, how can you get that done?
Well, you do the old footage thing. You take footage that you recorded during Episode 7 that you didn't use, and you.
It would feel so false, though.
I
agree. It would feel very false if you did that Trinity reunion then.
Because we're so cognizant of the fact that Carrie's not with us.
Yeah,
you can still do it as in putting her character in the movie through or whatever, but to do a reunion like that, I think it would be hard for us to get our heads into that, We
would just be questioning, like, how'd they do this the entire day? Yeah.
All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this today. I want to thank our special guest today, Mr. Greg Alba. Greg, thanks for taking the time and being here. Where can people find you online?
YouTube.com/TheRealRejects, people. Go watch my Avengers Endgame video. Put a lot of work into that opening sketch.
And they can also follow you on Twitter at The Greg Alba.
The Greg Alba, Instagram at The Greg Alba, and and I have a Facebook that you shouldn't friend request me at.
And guys, you of course can follow me on Twitter. You can see my Twitter handle right down there, simply at John Campea. That'll do it for us, guys. Don't forget, we will be back again tomorrow with another episode of the John Campea Show. Make sure you join us live. That'll do it for now. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.